By every official measure, the economy looks fine. Unemployment's near 4%, job growth looks solid on paper, and GDP still climbing. So why does it feel like the ground is shifting under everyone's feet? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The recession isn't on its way. It's already here. The data just hasn't caught up yet. And that's the thing about recessions. They get called after the fact, always. The folks in charge of officially declaring one, the National Bureau of Economic Research, they don't ring a bell while it's happening. They sit back. They wait. 6 months, 12 months, sometimes 18. They gather every scrap of data, and then they tell you what you already survived. Take 2008, the financial crisis. It actually kicked off back in December 2007, but it wasn't made official until December 2008, a full year later. Had already collapsed, and the whole world felt like it was ending. Same story with the dot-com crash in 2001. It started in March, didn't get declared until November. 8 months late. And this isn't because anyone's asleep at the wheel. It's just how the process works. They need mountains of confirmed data before they'll say it out loud. Which means you could be living through a recession right now and not get the official word for months. And that's exactly what's going on. Let's start with unemployment. It's around 4.4%. Doesn't sound scary, right? But here's what that number leaves out. It only counts people actively hunting for work, meaning you've applied somewhere in the last 4 weeks and still come up empty. But since the pandemic, more than 1.6 million Americans have straight up stopped looking. And because they stopped looking, they don't count as unemployed. Poof, gone from the stats entirely. On top of that, the share of people even in the workforce has dropped almost 1.5% compared to before the pandemic. So yeah, on paper, unemployment looks low, but there's a whole lot more to the story. While the headlines cheer a strong labor market, underneath it, there's a slow, steady stream of people just giving up. And it gets worse, because the jobs we're creating, they're not the same quality as the ones we're losing. There's been a quiet swap happening. Full-time jobs are vanishing. Part-time gigs are taking their place. And here's where the math gets sneaky. Say one full-time worker gets laid off, then has to grab 2 part-time jobs just to stay afloat. The government counts that as 2 jobs added. Net growth. Isn't that great? Even with that little accounting trick, 2025 only added about 181,000 net new jobs. And right now, 4.4 million Americans are stuck working part-time because they can't find full-time work. So technically, they're employed. Financially, they're drowning. All across the economy, one solid full-time job with benefits is getting chopped into a couple of part-time gigs with none. Income drops, security disappears, but the employment stats still look shiny. It's like saying the housing market's fine because everyone's still got a roof, while ignoring that they all downsized from houses to tiny studio apartments. Now throw in inflation. Prices are up more than 25% since 2020, and for a growing number of people, the paycheck just can't keep up. So how are folks surviving? Plastic, credit cards. Americans aren't swiping for a fancy dinner anymore. They're borrowing to cover the basics. Groceries, gas, rent. It's a quick fix that's quietly building into a much bigger problem. Credit card debt just smashed a record, $1.28 trillion at the end of 2025, and the average interest rate? Around 22%. So when the media brags about strong consumer spending, don't get it twisted. People aren't spending more because they're earning more, they're spending more because they're borrowing more. And the savings rate tells the exact same story. Historically, Americans put away about 8% of their income. Now, just 4.5%. This right here is textbook pre-recession behavior. Households stretching thin, leaning on debt to hold their lifestyle together while real income just sits there. And it works. Until it doesn't. We've seen this movie before. Back in 2007, the media was cheering about strong spending right before everything came crashing down. And today's economy? It's got that same feeling, like it's running on borrowed time. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's this thing called the Leading Economic Index. It's literally designed to predict recessions, and it's now dropped 6 months in a row. Same pattern we saw right before both the 2001 and 2008 recessions got declared. And it's not just showing up in people's wallets, it's hitting the corporate world too. Business bankruptcies have jumped over 7%, more than 24,000 filings. That's the highest in over a decade. Those companies that coasted on cheap pandemic-era money, they're feeling the squeeze now that conditions have tightened. Now, maybe this is all just one big coincidence. Maybe every single indicator is just crying wolf. But then again, maybe not. Because look at the full picture. Fewer people in the workforce, job quality getting worse, buying power shrinking, credit use exploding, savings disappearing while debt piles up. This isn't one metric having an off month. This is the entire lineup of pre-recession warning signs flashing all at once. It's like your car's check engine light, oil warning, and brake light all popping on at the same time. Sure, any one of them alone might be a glitch, but altogether, something deeper is going on. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Why do the official numbers still look healthy when the economy feels anything but? And the answer? The system we use to measure the economy was built back in the 1940s, and it's been quietly tweaked over the years to hide the cracks. Take unemployment again. If you work 1 hour a week, congrats, you're employed. So drive DoorDash for a single hour, and you land in the exact same bucket as a salaried software engineer. Or take GDP. It counts money spent on credit the exact same as money spent from actual income. No difference. These methods don't paint a real picture. They create blind spots, cozy little corners where bad data can hide. And underneath all of it is something called Goodhart's Law. The idea is simple. The moment a measurement becomes a target, it stops being a good measurement. Once policymakers and markets start chasing a specific number, they stop chasing reality. And that's how your actual life can say one thing while the official stat says another. Because we're not really measuring the economy anymore. We're just managing the numbers we use to measure it. And over time, those numbers drift further and further from what people actually feel. That's why unemployment becomes about lowering a headline number instead of creating good jobs. Why GDP becomes about pumping out output instead of improving lives. Why inflation tracking becomes about managing an index instead of actually lowering your cost of living. None of this is random. It's Goodhart's Law playing out in real time. The metric becomes the target, and the system optimizes for the number, not the thing the number was supposed to stand for. That gap between the measurement and reality? It's not an accident. It's exactly where recessions hide, until they're too obvious to ignore. And that's precisely what we're feeling right now. So when the NBER finally makes it official, it won't be breaking news. It'll just be confirmation of what anyone paying attention already knew. And once you see this, once you spot the illusion in how we measure the economy, you can't unsee it. So when the media celebrates job growth, ask about job quality. When they brag about rising wages, check them against inflation. When consumer spending looks strong, go look at the credit data. Because there's always more to the story than what you're being told. And the deeper you dig, the clearer it gets. The economy people actually live in and the economy that gets reported, they're not always the same thing. But the real economy leaves clues. Labor markets weakening, credit ballooning, savings vanishing. And this exact pattern has come before every major recession. So the real question now is, how long before the official data finally catches up? If videos like this help you see things a little clearer, hit subscribe. It's about time somebody actually shed some light on this stuff. And if you're seeing these trends show up in your own life, drop a comment. Because, honestly, sometimes the best economic data comes from the people living in the economy, not the people measuring it. Because when the dust finally settles and the numbers finally line up with reality, the real question is this: who's going to be ready and who's going to get blindsided?